everybody. How are you? Welcome, everyone, to this wonderful, engaging episode of Mental Health Monday. We are live on YouTube on Fly Nubian Queen, the Black Excellence channel. Oh gosh, the Black Love channel. We just broadcasting live today, this evening, because we want to talk about a really interesting film that me as a therapist and social worker and advocate for those in need felt that it was so important. I'm your host. I'm Dr. Alicia, and I have two incredible guests with me today to talk about the new Lee Daniels film. Y'all can get this on Netflix. It's called Deliverance. You can watch it on Netflix. We won't spoil it too much for you, but I want to, as a therapist, to bring on experts. So I have with me today Dr. Buster Obwagu. He is my wonderful colleague at my university. He's an expert in child welfare. He knows the history of everything. And so he joins me today. And I also have my brand new friend. I have an Instagram crush on her. Y'all check her out on Instagram. She's at the Inner Child Whisperer. Her name is Denise Brady. She specializes in traumatic experiences and so forth. So today we're going to focus on this film, The Deliverance. First of all, I had to watch this film because it's not based on a true story. It's based on real events that happened in my hometown of Gary, Indiana. So I had to watch it. I'm like, what happened in Gary? Somebody was possessed in Gary. And so I really think that, watching this film, I had high hopes for a beautiful film. I'm thinking The Exorcist just scared me when I was a child growing up, and I wanted to see a Black version of a horror film. And I got to tell you, it was kind of nice to see this reunion between Monique and Lee Daniels after they fell out over Precious. Anyway, we won't get too much into the content of this video because I really thought that we could focus our time on drawing out some really interesting topics that affect us. Child welfare, intergenerational trauma, all of these family dynamics that we saw on the screen. It just seems like Lee Daniels took all of the trauma in Black families and threw it up against this film and decided, I'm just going to let Black people run with this. So if you watch the film, it could be triggering and very traumatizing. So today we're going to try to make sense of all of the really real issues and themes in the film, The Deliverance. Okay, I've said enough. Let's dive right in. I want to go to Dr. Obwagu, Buster Obwagu. Okay. This film is very, very fascinating because it talks about the child welfare system, and the character Monique plays a social worker. And every time I see a social worker on the screen, because I'm a social worker myself, I tend to cringe because they portrayed this social worker as cold. She was she didn't listen very well, not very much empathy there. You can tell that there were they had an ongoing relationship. So apparently there was always some accusations in this family. And I really didn't see this character, Monique, who played the social worker. She really did not connect with her on a real level until the end of the film, which should have happened at the beginning of the film. So here we go. This sort of like messages about the realities of child welfare and what it says about this system and how it impacts Black families, because disproportionately Black families are in contact with the child welfare system, and it wasn't very kind. So what do you have to say to that, Dr. Buster?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Alicia, for bringing us to this forum. It's my pleasure to be a part of it. The child welfare system is very convoluted and has been. Its birth was around 1874 in New York City with the case of Mary Ellen Wilson, who was abused, and of course was, to all intents and purposes, life saved by a social worker called Etta Williams. And that's how social work was born. And then, of course, it grew into what we knew as the Children's Aid in New York. Eventually, in the United States, they changed most of them to DCFS, Department of Child and Family Services. But in Canada, they still call them the Children's Aid. And fortunately, I was a child protection worker under the meaning of the Ontario Child and Family Services Act for about 10 years. And I was actually still practicing until I came over to Illinois. So the concept of child welfare as we knew it was initially designed to work and save white people. However, as time wore on, many white people trained to become social workers. And because of the historical antecedents of slavery, many of the people, most of the families that entered the system became Black. So there was this concept of a white savior for Black savages. And that has defined, child welfare as we know it, with a preponderance of Blacks overrepresented in the system, where the services are not there. The good thing is that over the years, a few Black social workers have come into the system. However, remember that this is a system that is designed primarily to save children from ostensibly bad parents. So the case that Dr. Alicia mentioned is not peculiar. It is the definition of child welfare as we knew it. And in my case, at the time I was working as a child protection worker, even in a place where they have fewer Blacks, at the time I left Canada, the population of Blacks in Canada was under 1 million. But they were overrepresented in the child welfare and juvenile justice system, because I also worked as a youth delegate under the meaning of Young Offenders Act in Canada for juvenile offenses. So the essence of this is that the initial, ab initio, the reason for creating child welfare was to assist children following the Mary Ellen Wilson case. However, over time, it changed. Funding became a problem. Caseload matters. People had too many caseload, and the safety of social workers. All we have are our pens. We don't have guns, but we are pushed frequently to become a systemic source of hate. Because they see social workers as people who steal children, people who take children into foster care so they are abused further. So those are the concepts under which we're working, and it's between the rock and a very hard place that social workers in child protection have been placed, because the families you want to help hate you. The system doesn't provide you all the resources you need to work with them. So to all intents and purposes, the system also hates you. And I presume that's what's happening with this movie that Dr. Alicia mentioned, because the social worker was seen as somebody who was inimical to the health and development of the kid, of the kids. This Monique character that was mentioned in the place. So, and I'm going to speak further to this, but I just wanted to introduce how we came where we are at. From the period of the white savior, and then of course after the antebellum, after the end of the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, Blacks now became the object through death peonage, chain gang, prison, work exchange, and then of course their families were regarded as lacking father figure in the place. But what happened to the fathers that left the home? The slave master sold them from the field. And then you expect their children to behave well when their dad is not there. So therefore, to that extent, this was a solution to a problem that didn't exist. And I'll let it be for now.
I can't. I'm coming up out of my chair here because I worked in child welfare system in Illinois, and I worked with kids in the system who were born in the 80s at the time, because remember it was like the late, it was 1998. So I got a lot of kids who were born like in the 80s, and we know what was happening in the 80s. It was the crack epidemic. And if you were born, if they dumped crack in our Black communities, got everybody, these moms, hooked on crack. And as soon as that baby was born with any trace of substance in their system, they did not respond to it in a way where they were giving them the support and the help and the substance and the treatment that they really needed. They immediately took those kids away from their mothers and separated those families to save these little Black babies who were just brought up in nothing but institutions, not a family, but institutions.
And most of them actually aged out of the system into the prison system.
Aged out of the system to the prison system. There was no rehabilitation. And what's sad is that right now we have a substance abuse issue crisis going on with heroin and all sorts of substances. Their whole approach, because the face of the people look different.
Have changed.
Now they want to like embrace them and keep these families intact. But what happened to that in the 80s when you were
right? We told them for decades that addiction was a mental health issue. Somebody wakes up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm just going to get addicted so I can mess my life up. But the moment, all the parents who are now in prison, 25 to life, thanks to the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of Bill Clinton in 1994, and then Ronald Reagan. Most of these parents who had crack cocaine or marijuana are in prison. And then, of course, now marijuana, the only people who can get license to sell marijuana legally are not Black people, not those people in prison. And it gets better. Now we have opioid addiction. An average of between 110 and 120 people die every year in the United States, much more than Vietnam. Vietnam was about 62,000. So now, who is being affected? Most of them don't look like you and I. They are white people in Appalachia. So now we have to save them. Now we have begun to recognize that it's a mental health, because the faces have changed.
Yes,
absolutely. Denise, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think that now that it's affecting them, it's a big thing. Let's save, let's put money towards it, because now it's affecting them, that my children, how did these drugs get to my community? They've been there. It's just now the faces of it is something different. Now we want to pour money into it. We want to make commercials. We want to make it political. Okay. We don't want to be poor. We don't want to be on drugs. Not our kids. Keep that over there in the hood.
Absolutely. And I just never understood in the film, why did the social worker never set this family up for family therapy? I'm like, where's her therapist? Like, she needed someone to talk to and to bounce off of. You would think that a child welfare worker worth anything would have a wraparound plan for this family. But it was so one tone that I was just waiting. Okay, where's the therapy?
But the major problem, remember that primordially, anybody could be a social worker. To that extent. Remember The Family Visitor by Mary Richmond. At that time, anybody could be a family visitor. And plus, remember that child welfare is a part of this. A part of the family services system. Those are the places where the government and politicians cut first, and that's why you have those caseloads. Somebody's carrying 70, 80 cases.
Yes.
How are they going to work them? How are they going to work them? And of course, the foster parents are reimbursed at minimally,
Yes.
and they can hardly sustain themselves. I remember that the Black community are pouring in and of themselves. Therefore, they have no capacity to even take in foster children, so that they are not lost, so that they don't lose their identity. Because remember that a preponderance of the adoption and fostering was by white people. And in that case, the Black children lost their identity and lost their sense of who they are. At some point, I think it was in 1980s, Black social workers were agitating. However, the systems do not have enough resources to provide all we are talking about, including counseling and stuff like that. So they just went with what they had.
Yeah, this is so fascinating what drugs has done to our communities. It's like they took all of the men and put them in prison. They took all of the moms and made them into terrible mothers, and then stripped their kids away from them.
Yeah.
That really was just slavery all over again. Modern day slavery. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So let me move on, because that's it. Okay. So I was so happy to get the inner child whisperer on here because y'all check out. Let me tell you, Miss Denise here. If y'all go to the show notes, y'all will see a link to her analysis of this film. And when I saw that, first of all, I got an Instagram crush on you, because I love your stuff on Instagram.
Thank you.
And I thought your analysis of battling this inner demon, because this is a horror film, but I have been talking about inner demons for several years, the shadow side and all these things. How about you? Like, what did you get with this movie under this concept of battling your inner demons as the inner child whisperer?
Well, I felt like it reminded me just how we all have demons inside of us, not literal demons, but things that we are trying to fight for, trying to get past. And there was like this scene where she finally was able to overcome so many different things when she was able to release the demons inside of her, which in some ways, at times I find where she don't have to sacrifice her children to heal her own pain. But it was a lot of, all of us have things inside of us that we're trying to release. And if you look past the Lee Daniels of it all, the Tyler Perry of it all, okay, you will see the deeper meanings that you have to work through and have all that stuff be released, because if you don't, your demon's gonna control everybody. Like they control her kids. Her mama was controlled. And the one thing for me, when you guys were talking about Monique, I was like, how did Monique go from being an abusive mother and precious to now being a social worker with the same attitude?
Yeah, just to support what you're saying, it reminds me of The Exorcist with Linda Blair. And the demon had the kid and had even her mom, because the demon Pazuzu was somewhere in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's true. Before I weigh in on this whole demon thing, I want everybody to text love to 87948. We love mental health. We love y'all Black people. So text love to 87948, and then you'll be able to get text messages. You'll find out when I do Mental Health Mondays. I have my Healing Haven book club on Sundays, and whenever my husband and I decide to do a YouTube video, you'll get text notifications about that. Plus, I send you stuff. I can send you information and stuff like that. So I just want to tell everybody, this is Mental Health Monday. I am Dr. Alicia. If you like what Dr. Buster is saying, by the way, a male professional, okay, from Nigeria. People notice your Nigerian accent, Dr. Buster. If y'all interested in working with him, contact me. I'll get you in contact with him to make sure you can have somebody who understands your unique issues as a Black man. And of course, if you're interested in working with me, you can contact me at Coaching with Dr. Alicia. Please go to Inner Child Whisperer on Instagram and reach out, because she is like so great. You nail it. All your posts is like cracking me up. I'm like laughing. I'm so inspired by you. I'm not that creative. I can't come up with fun videos like that. But We are here talking about the Lee Daniels film, Deliverance. And we've been talking about the racist systems of child welfare system. We are talking about how these movies, have y'all seen horror films like It and other horror films like, what's another one where you're like The Shining, all of these movies about the demon inside. It's really about facing all of the things that you suppress. And when you suppress it, believe it or not, it grows. That's why I love the movie It, and even Smile kind of gives it to you, where you have Smile. It's like you have this plastic exterior that has nothing to do with what's going on inside. You're burying down your feelings. And I think for Black people, especially us that have been through any sort of painful experience, and let me tell you something, you sign up for a painful experience just being born. Trying to make it through this world, you sign up for a painful experience, but you don't have to suffer from it.
No, Dr. Alicia, just to chime in.
Yes.
Remember that the historical antecedents of slavery meant that Black people had to internalize their pain.
Yes.
I remember when I came to North America and I came to the United States particularly, I was vociferous because I didn't experience slavery. I experienced colonialism. I was allowed to go to school to the highest peak. So I came here equipped with both intellectual capital and a bad mouth. So when I voiced it, and Dr. Alicia and my colleagues know that I have no blinders. I am extremely confrontational. And because of the internalized oppression that Black people around me have felt, each time I said something, they cringed because they were afraid that I was jumping where angels fear to tread. So why is this happening? Because your grandmothers had taught you to walk. Remember Emmett Till?
Yes.
Left Chicago. He was an uppity boy, 14. And he didn't know any fear in Chicago when he left for Money, Mississippi. His mom, Mommy Mebley, said, "You are going to the South. Whatever they tell you, say, sir, ma'am." But this wasn't the kid. This was a kid who was free in Chicago, and he paid a price for it. So why am I going here? The concept of oppression is internalized.
Yes.
And to that extent, those who internalize it suffer more, leading to depression and all sorts of somatic behaviors, including suicidality, including abandonment of self, because you're saying, nobody values me, I'm nothing. So you can't stomp, you can't walk, you can't even talk, even when they are killing you. So those are some of the things that I bring. I was born in Nigeria. I was a child soldier in Nigeria. I went to university. I came to Canada as a refugee with duffel bags, and I'm in the United States. So I've been there, done that. But one thing I bring is the lack of fear, because everything that needed to be done to me to dehumanize me is already been done. And you're looking at a skeleton of me that has now become a phoenix, reborn, and no longer carrying this trauma, but leaving the trauma as the foot of those who are traumatizing me.
Yes.
And you see that in my publications because I say it the way it is and I don't care. So those are some of the things I'm looking for my Black fellows, Black families, to stand your ground and no longer internalize. Because if you internalize, it kills you.
It does kill you if you don't face how you really feel. And see, this is the reason why when I did my work in my Fulbright scholarship and I was in Guyana, for the first time in my life, I felt seen. I'm at this university. Nobody understands me. Nobody gets me. Half the people don't like me. And I don't know why. I'm baffled. And it just, every time I talk with and think about that experience of being around intelligent Black therapists who are smart and social workers, educators who are doing such wonderful things, it is so refreshing. Coming back, people say, oh, what about the transition of going to this all Black country? I'm like, I didn't see white people for 5 months. My life was great. Coming back and integrating back into America was the toughest time.
Was a journey. Yeah, was a journey.
It was traumatic, I would honestly say, for me in a lot of different ways. So it just reminds me, and I do want to talk about this film, but I don't want to get into, oh my God, I'm sad now. But I love working with you, Dr. Buster, because it's refreshing. Dr. Buster is my neighbor next door. His office right next to mine. I could go and talk to him. Yeah. So I love that. I love that. Look at this. Look at the comments. P.I. stand your ground everywhere. Dr. Buster, you inspire me, but it seems like you're inspiring everybody, because it's nice to hear this articulated in a way where I can't even articulate it, because I haven't been given the space to really process what all I've been through. All of us as Black people have been through. And to even go back to the movie, and I guess either one of you all can comment on this. This movie, Deliverance, it really mimics the experiences that I've even had as a PhD, working very well about, she raised her voice to the medical system. There was a point in this movie where she is talking about the concern for her children.
Yeah.
Ebony, I guess that's her name, but played by Audrey Day. Audrey Day. She expresses concerns about her children and was dismissed by these white medical professionals. They did not have the respect for Ebony and her experience and her concern, appropriate concern. And here she is in contact with yet another system of racism and white supremacy, basically. Like, what is this poor Black single mom? What does she know about what's going on? I ran the test. I know better. Yeah. Either one of you all can comment on that.
Yeah, Serena Williams, the tennis star, has a daughter. At the time, she was prepartum. She did everything right. When she went to give birth to her baby, she was terrified because of the ideas of marriage. The thing that usually happens to Black women, and Serena Williams is worth millions, but the system doesn't care. I have a daughter who is in medicine. Sometimes they think she is the nurse.
Yeah.
And they say, are you the nurse around here? I say, no, I am the doctor. And then the nurses will tell her, well, we've been doing this. We are nurses, we've been doing this. And my daughter will say, I was also a pediatric nurse. So I don't know what you want to tell me. So it does not matter whatever PhD you have as a Black woman or as a Black man. They always think that you should be somewhere lower in the totem pole. And that's essentially why Serena Williams said she nearly died when she was pregnant with her baby. And this is somebody who is worth millions of dollars and has won all kinds of trophies. So it's not the individual, it's about the system. It's systemic racism. And the people who are engaging in systemic racism are not bad people. However, monkey see, monkey do. The socialization process across generations has taught them that this individual, it's half a human being. So to that extent, you treat them that way, and they don't want to do it. They don't even know they are doing it, but they are doing it because they have internalized the power of oppression.
Excellent. Miss Denise, you want to weigh in on?
I think that in the movie, they already had an impression of who she was based off of how she looked and based off of her history. A lot of this happens all the time in schools and different environments because they already have a perception of who we are based on how we look and past experiences with us. So you see a lot of kids get lost in the system, be in group homes because of the parents' history or because of what people perceive us to be like, that we don't even have a chance to speak up or have a voice because it's already written off in their mind. I think over and over in this movie, she was just a woman, I think, who needed support, assistance, and a village. But because it had already a perception of how she looked, how she talked, she was not a person who could get help. She didn't have the right village.
No.
Yeah, I was surprised.
And for black women,
Yes.
the moment you express your concern, you
Mhm.
are belligerent, you are aggressive, you are
Mhm.
raising your voice. For males, we are regarded as antagonistic. So
Mhm.
what have I adopted? When I'm talking to anybody who is not of color, I will say the way we say, and then they said, why are you screaming? I said, because I can. And this is who we are, deal with it. And I usually will ask them, can't you see Italians when they are gesticulating, semaphore? And they're screaming, Mamma mia, Mamma mia. Haven't you to call them angry?
Yes.
And I said, I am an angry. If you come to my door, you will see where I said, I am the epitome of the angry black male. And I wear it as a badge of honor, deal with it.
Yeah, and you know, it's so interesting. They like to say that about, and there's even black people who say that about black women.
They want you to be quiet.
And I'm like, what is going on here? Have you not been around?
Yeah.
I used to live next to a lady who was Greek.
Yeah.
Those women were running that household, like, you know, and those men were loving them and respecting them, and they just stepped out of the way. There was no clash like that. And I was just, and especially Italians are, you know,
and you know, as women go, the black woman is the strongest.
Yes.
And most family oriented. Look at what they have gone through from 1492 when this stupid man from Italy, Christopher Columb, arrived the North American continent. He was lost. Since that time, black women have experienced all kinds of trauma. But look at where they are. If you compare them to all the other cultures of women who have had everything handed to them, they are not doing better than us.
Right.
Yeah, but they think they are.
Yeah, but the problem is also we think they are. So
yes, we think
our mindset. We need to make a paradigm shift where we know that we are, and then we let people know that we are. Because if you say you are, thou are not, nobody will say thou art. But if you say I am, people will now say that you are.
It's a systematic issue, yeah.
Yeah. So
because remember that the oppressor wants to see you as weak. So,
yes.
And you know, they are like you know, predators. They watch and they see the weakness, and then they come.
Absolutely. So I see everybody in the chat here. How y'all doing? Ain't nothing like a black woman. Look at Trey. Trey, interesting name, Trey. There was a fictional character in this film called Trey, and we never got to see who Trey was. This film, by the way, watch it if you want to watch it. I give it 1 out of 5 stars in terms of like its development and everything, but the acting, it had some star-studded actors in here. It had the mom. The mom was played, you guys, by Glenn Close.
He must have threw a bag at her.
And Glenn Close's character is very interesting because she really kind of she takes on a different type of role as an actress. Her name is Alberta. I had to write her name down. She plays the mother of Andra Day's character, Ebony. And their interactions with each other is very, very hostile. It's very antagonistic. There's a lot of B words that are flying back and forth at each other. There's an opening scene of the movie at the dinner table. And this white lady, Glenn Close, is trying to educate her daughter on how to season greens. Nothing, I'm sorry, as a black woman, nothing was more offensive than that scene. Opening up scene. Because how you gonna tell a black woman how to season greens? I don't know how that's even possible. But
that hospital scene was not, it didn't get to you when she said she could see the, you know, private part.
Oh my God. When she turns, she gets possessed by this devil and she turns and said, did she say I can smell your nappy P-U? I can't even say that on that line. Who wrote that? Did Lee Daniels himself sit at a desk and say, I'm going to have this written? I don't know who the writers were. It was crazy, but she's a single mom. She lives with her mother. She has all of these issues going on with her children. And she was neglectful and she was abusive as a mother in a lot of different ways. Although there were times where she seemed appropriately concerned for her children, hence the demons, right? Suppressing how you feel. But there was all these references to intergenerational trauma. And I was wondering from you, Denise, you know, tell me what you saw and what came up for you when you noticed the dynamic between this mother and daughter dynamic, these 3 generations of people living in this haunted house.
I feel like there were just so many mother wounds from Glenn Close not having her own healing. And you see how all that got poured in her daughter, the poor boundaries. Their relationship was toxic. And I think we don't talk enough about how toxic mother-daughter relationships are, and how you show up in the world as a woman comes from that mother-daughter relationship. Your first friend was your mama. Yep. So no matter, depending on how your mom treated you, that's how you see yourself. That's how you see yourself with other women. And I think them just going back and forth, it just shows how we don't talk enough about mother-daughter relationships, and how a lot of those relationships are not what you see on TV. A lot of them are more like Glenn Close and Ebony. Okay. And I think that sometimes it's repeated trauma.
Yeah. So what would you suggest that people do to kind of break down these barriers? What suggestions would you have? This mother-daughter dynamic, and clearly the mom, when it's interesting, there were scenes where Alberta would correct Ebony and say, hey, what are you doing with these kids? And she's like, who are you to talk? Because look at what you did to me. Like, you can't lecture me about how to be a good mother because you were not a good mother. And so this constant hostility going on between them, if the social worker had done her job and actually set them up with some family therapy, where would you start with them, Denise?
I would just try to figure out, what do they both want?
Yeah.
Do you want to work on your relationship? Do you need to leave each other alone and love each other from a distance? But I think they both are trying to communicate something that's power. They were fighting for power, to be seen. And because it was so much in between trauma, the trauma came through as this power dynamic between both of them. But really, it just shows you just how they're both the same person. But because of the trauma within her, the trauma within this person, I would just try and focus on, what do y'all want to heal? Do y'all want things to get better? Or are you comfortable with living in the way that you've been functioning?
Yeah, and I didn't understand like why there was no effort to kind of reconcile, because this comment here from Bezina says her mom was sick. Like, I kept thinking, okay, your mom is going through chemotherapy, is having cancer. I was waiting for like tender moments between the two of them, you know, to arise. It seems like realistically, there would have been a little bit more resolution in their relationship, considering the mom had this sort of illness going on. And the daughter, first of all, I don't understand how the daughter could pay for the chemotherapy treatments as a barber. That doesn't make sense. Like,
I don't know how the mom
makes no sense. And if the father of the children is in the military, why couldn't he be sending money? Why aren't they all on the insurance? Like, it didn't make sense to me, a lot of it. But yeah, it was really an interesting thing. And we're at the top, almost at the top of the hour.
But you know,
before we end, I'll let you talk.
Yeah,
we're almost at the top of the hour, and we have a hard stop. But Buster, we'll go to you. Last words about this, thoughts that you have about this, and where people can get a hold of you. Go, Dr. Buster.
My email is kabia4000@yahoo.com. kabia4000@yahoo.com.
Okay, and what do you have to say about this intergenerational thing you were going to mention?
The essence of this is that although neither Ebony nor her mother are in a therapeutic relationship, there is both transference and countertransference.
Yes.
Because Ebony is dumping her hate of what happened to her and her mother. Her mother, who has also internalized many layers, many plaque of oppression, it's fighting back. So essentially speaking, it should begin with mom, because mom is the adult here. So mom should get back to where what hurt her and begin to walk through that. And then as soon as she's able, you can't help anybody if you need help yourself.
That's true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really think that the two of them have to there's things that I felt like Ebony had on her mind and in her body that she felt like she needed to get out. That there's some reasonable gripes and bones that she needed to pick. I got the sense that there was some history of long-term abuse that, between the two of them. And so that, just for the sake of the children, I mean, those were... you can see that there was some love for those children. I think it was so important for them to kind of hammer out some of those things and deal with some of those demons that were happening. So thank you, Dr. Buster. And then we'll have Miss Denise, the inner child whisperer, last words about this film and how people can find you.
I'm just tired of seeing us be oppressed in these movies and these white people making money off of our oppression. That's what I'm tired of, okay? Can we see us be happy? Can we see us thrive, be married, own businesses? Why we got to be re-traumatized and being in every Tyler Perry, Oprah, all the movies? But those are my last thoughts. But you can find me on YouTube, Denise Brady, also the Inner Child Whisperer on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. My handle is the same everywhere. But yes, I do recaps on movies, mental health. I recently have been recapping the Braxton season, and those videos have been very popular, going over trauma, dysfunctional families. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on my channel also.
Yeah, and then the link to her video is in the show notes, so you'll be able to do that.
Yeah, so stand your ground. You are worth it.
That's right. Stand your ground. You are worth it. Speak your mind. Don't bury it down. You'll be fighting demons. I think that's the big takeaway today. But I want to thank the two of you, Dr. Obuagu, Miss Denise, for joining me. These are valuable insights. Viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Come back next Monday. I'm inviting the two of them back on here. Somebody will be contacting you. And of course, if you want to contact me, you can see me at coachingwithdralicia.com. And remember, healing is a community effort. Together we make a difference. Hopefully that today's show has raised your awareness about what scary movies mean. We got to look past some of the bad acting and the unreal. We didn't even get into Omar Epps and some of the bad writing. These were excellent characters, bad writing.
Bad writing for sure.
Shame on you, Lee Daniels, for this movie.
You will pay for your crimes.
You will pay for your crimes. But it's a movie about Gary, Indiana, and I'm from Gary, Indiana, and it's a story that really happened to this lady. So I'm always tuned in with everything Gary. Representing my hometown. But thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and I will see you next Monday. Bye,
thank you.
everyone.
Adios.
Bye.